Chapter 1. The Doorway in the Dust. The sky was a chaotic flurry of purple and dark blue streaks. The stars spun swiftly over the horizon as if the entire sky were a globe whisked into a frenzy by a curious child. Despite this celestial movement, the landscape was perfectly still. The man trudged onwards. It was an uncharacteristic moment of impulse that caused him to plunge into the fissure after his friend. Now they were separated by an unknown and unknowable span of time and space. He was afraid. What if there was no way out? What if he had damned himself and his friend? What if she was truly gone? Anxious thoughts could paralyze him, so he decided the moment for dwelling on endless contingencies had passed. Action was needed now, and the will to carry it out. The words of her mantra seemed all the more important in the strange landscape before him. At the summit of the next hill, the man saw the dust-filled landscape of the valley beyond and wondered, briefly, if this was even the correct way to find her. He was dressed in many layers of thick leather and, including his pack, had almost 36 pockets for storing trinkets and provisions. His face was covered by a dirty yet functional gray hood, and his eyes were protected from the dust by simple black goggles. The man produced a compass from one of the numerous pouches lining his chest. The compass spun wildly, which told him the information he needed. He nodded and returned it to its pouch. Holding his hand to his brow to block the glare of a non-present sun, he scanned the valley, spotted an anomaly in the distance, an indistinct and suspicious shape in the middle of the valley, and made his way down. He pulled out a handful of marbles as he made his way down the slope of the valley. His years of preparation, spent reading tomes borrowed from the library, would finally be put to good use. Periodically, as he traveled towards the anomaly, he threw marbles into the dust. The small orbs glowed brightly and filled the dust around them with a pleasant blue light. One by one, the marbles laid out a twisting trail behind the man, evidence of his safe route across the valley. The anomaly was blurry and indistinct, like looking at a smeared painting. The man had seen a similar effect before, but this strange object in the middle of the dust was not dangerous, or so he hoped. When the anomaly was almost near enough to decipher its true form, it vanished. The man was overcome by a wave of nausea and stumbled forward before regaining his balance. He leaned on his knees, waiting to regain his equilibrium. It was a familiar sensation, the nausea of abrupt separation. The last time he had felt this was moments after he had damned himself by killing his friend. Can't trust my eyes then. I thought this might be the case. How far did that rogue space take me? He quickly surveyed the dust around him, turned to his left and spied the blue snake of progress far off in the distance. The sameness of the dust-filled ground didn't do much to indicate the sudden change in location, but the blue snake in the distance was unmistakable. The physical space near the anomaly was twisted imperceptibly. A direct route wouldn't work. The man produced a marble from a different pouch and threw it on the dust. This time, an aura of blood-red light filled the area. Not wanting to add any more variables to his experiment, the man walked backwards. Within moments, another wave of nausea hit, and the doorway anomaly reappeared in front of him. At least the twisted space worked going both directions, he thought. Taking 2 blue marbles, the man cast one to the left and one to the right of the twisted space in front of him. Simply walking forward to the anomaly was not possible. The leftmost marble vanished before hitting the ground, but the rightmost marble nestled harmlessly in the dust and produced a splash of blue light. Right it is then, the man said. Stepping to the right, the man heard a crescendoing whistle followed by a sharp pain on top of his head. He yelped and brushed off whatever had struck him. There was a soft thunk, and then a familiar blue glow radiated from below his feet. So that's where you went. The man circled around to the right and made his way towards the anomaly once more. Now within arm's reach, its amorphous form resolved into the shape of a simple door. There was no ornate trim or mystical runes, just a simple white door with a simple brass doorknob. "I've come a long way," the man said to the door. "I have hated and loved. I have feared and caused fear, and I know I deserve what's coming. But please, before I die, open so I can talk to her myself. I know she hasn't been destroyed. My memories tell me this is true. Before my soul is erased, please let me see her again." The man reached out and pulled open the door. It opened effortlessly and with a satisfying creak. Through the doorway, the man could see only pure white light. Without crossing the portal completely, it would be impossible to tell what was inside. With a slow exhale, the man stepped forward. A smell of fish rotting in the sun filled his nostrils. That smell, it's so familiar. The man turned away from the door. Before he could make any further movements, he felt a pressure on his right shoulder. The smell of decay strengthened, but the man couldn't see anything. An unseen hand on his shoulder jerked him back from the doorway. Another wave of nausea. The man landed on his back in the dust. The unseen force tore a gash into his shoulder. Blood poured from the fresh wound. The blood and dust mingled on the ground behind him, and in that moment he could sense the intention of the malicious presence. He tried to scramble to his feet, but was stopped halfway. The presence grabbed his backpack. The man unstrapped his pack and stumbled forward. He ran straight ahead, thinking he would be met with the open doorway of the anomaly, but was met with only the endless dust of the valley. He spun around and saw the doorway in the distance. He had shifted again during the attack. The man's backpack vibrated on the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. The dust swirled back down into the presence beneath the backpack. The vaguest outline of a figure formed amidst the dust. After a few moments of bloody creation, the backpack was thrown violently away, revealing a humanoid shadow on the ground. A grotesquely proportioned arm had manifested. The creature's face formed next, created with the blood drawn from the man's wound. The limbs of the monstrosity that were not covered in dust remained translucent, giving its form the impression of a half-finished painting. The man surveyed the area. His backpack had been thrown away and lay motionless in the dust. Off in the distance and in the opposite direction, he could see the doorway. Fear and logic were fighting for dominance in his mind. Fear said to run. Logic says that will only result in being lost in the twisted space of the valley. Perhaps this is what happened to the creature? An intense spike of pain brought the man's idle planning to a halt as he realized the wound in his shoulder, cut down to the bone, was spurting blood. In this moment, the man wished he had planned for invisible monsters, but he knew even the best plans will have unknown variables. He thought, was this what was pursuing them by the lamppost? The creature had now formed most of its head and upper torso. With a screech of desperation, it spoke. Its face remained eyeless, yet the man could feel its hateful gaze. The creature threw its malformed arm towards the man and dragged itself closer. The creature dragged itself along the trail of bloody dust that led to the man's injured shoulder. It released an ear-piercing scream of equal parts agony and pleasure every moment its incomplete body came into contact with a drop of the man's blood. The creature's body became more complete with each exultation. Thinking fast, the man pulled a rag out of one of his pockets and held the wound on his shoulder as best as he could. As the pressure from the rag contacted the exposed nerves in his shoulder, the man's vision blurred and he blacked out on the spot from the pain. He was not out for more than a few seconds, but it was enough for the creature to have formed rudimentary legs. Adrenaline overriding his pain, the man rose to his feet and ran towards his backpack. The creature howled and turned to pursue. The man reached the backpack and desperately searched the pockets. Just as he found a small blue vial, he was violently thrown aside by the newfound strength of the creature's body. The impact loosened his grip on the blue vial, sending it tumbling just out of reach. Now on his back, the man could see that the entire right arm of the creature terminated into a fleshy blade. The creature lifted its sword, readying a coup de grace. Before the creature's finishing blow could connect, the man had a flash of inspiration. Balling up the blood-soaked rag from his shoulder, he threw it past the creature. The trajectory of the creature's sword swing effortlessly tracked the airborne rag, skewing it as it hit the ground. Fully utilizing his rag's noble sacrifice, the man reached out for the blue vial and poured its contents onto his exposed shoulder. Instantly, his entire shoulder froze into a ball of prickly ice. The shock of the frozen nerves rendered the man's right arm useless, but there was no longer a torrent of tempting blood for the creature to track. The man reached his backpack, picked it up, and threw it over his left shoulder. Searching the area, he could see three things. Firstly, the creature, following its latest meal, had produced a single eye in its head, which strongly implied its sight had been restored. Secondly, the doorway in the distance was tantalizingly close, but farther away than the physical distance implied. Lastly, and most importantly, the man could see the red aura of his last thrown marble glowing surprisingly close. Before the creature could get his bearings, the man sprinted for the red aura. Upon reaching the marble, he turned around in order to orient himself in the proper direction. The man saw the tortured form of the creature running towards him. It had, in the interim, developed a third bladed appendage. Despite the man's morbid curiosity as to what this thing would eventually mutate into, he bid the creature farewell and stepped backwards. The wave of nausea hit the man as expected, but his determination saw that his vision remained clear. As soon as the nausea passed, he stepped forward into the white light of the doorway anomaly. The Aspect of Separation is a novel by Jeffrey Nordine. On the next episode, Incident on the Void Gate Express.